There is one adjustment that takes less than 30 seconds to implement before any workout, and it changes how the entire session feels, performs, and recovers in ways that most people have been missing for years. If this is your first time here, subscribe and share this with someone who trains consistently but never quite feels like their sessions are running at full capacity. This channel breaks down the details that make the difference between training that works and training that merely happens. Most people walk into a workout carrying everything from the previous hours of their day. The posture of someone who has been sitting at a desk. The breathing pattern of someone who has been stressed and cognitively overloaded. The muscular tension of someone who has been hunched over a screen. The low-level mental distraction of unfinished conversations, incomplete tasks, and the background noise of a full life. And then they try to perform. They try to squat with full depth when their hip flexors are still locked from 3 hours of sitting. They try to press with full shoulder stability when their upper traps are already elevated from stress-driven tension. They try to focus on the quality of each rep when the mental bandwidth required for genuine attentional training has been partially consumed by everything that preceded the session. The workout happens. The effort is there. But the session never quite reaches the quality it was capable of, and the person leaves feeling like they trained without feeling like they performed. The tiny change that addresses all of this is not a new exercise. It is not a supplement or a protocol change. It is a deliberate, structured transition. A practice of resetting the nervous system, the breath, and the muscular state before the first working set begins. And its effect on session quality, performance, and post-workout recovery is disproportionate to the time it requires. What the nervous system state actually does to performance. Before the mechanism of the fix can be understood, the mechanism of the problem needs to be clear, because most people have no idea that their nervous system state at the moment training begins is one of the primary variables governing the quality of what follows. The autonomic nervous system operates on a spectrum. At one end is the sympathetic state, high arousal, elevated cortisol and adrenaline, accelerated heart rate, heightened alertness, and the physiological profile associated with stress, threat response, and cognitive demand. At the other end is the parasympathetic state, lower arousal, regulated cortisol, slower heart rate, and the internal conditions associated with rest, digestion, and recovery. Effective training requires a specific point on that spectrum. Not maximum sympathetic arousal. The anxious, cortisol-flooded state that a stressful workday produces is not the same as the focused, activated state that enables quality athletic performance. And not parasympathetic dominance. The deeply relaxed state is not conducive to generating the physical effort that training demands. The optimal state for training is regulated arousal, controlled sympathetic activation with sufficient parasympathetic tone to allow precise motor control, focused attention, and the recovery between sets that makes each subsequent set productive. It is the state of being alert without being anxious, activated without being reactive. Most people arrive at the gym in a state of unregulated sympathetic dominance, stressed, mentally scattered, physically tense from the day's demands, and begin training without doing anything to shift that state toward the regulated arousal that actual performance requires. The session is technically completed, but the nervous system state in which it occurs limits the quality of every component, from the motor recruitment efficiency that determines how much force the muscles can express, to the attentional focus that determines how deliberately each rep is executed, to the recovery speed between sets that determines how productively the training volume accumulates. The breath reset, what it does and why it works. The single most accessible and effective tool for shifting nervous system state before training is structured breathing. Specifically, a brief period of controlled breathing that deliberately activates the parasympathetic nervous system to reduce the stress state arousal carried from the day before transitioning into the focused activation appropriate for training. The mechanism is direct and well understood. The vagus nerve, the primary nerve of the parasympathetic system, is directly influenced by the breathing pattern. Extended exhalations relative to inhalations activate the vagus nerve and produce measurable reductions in heart rate, cortisol, and the subjective sense of stress and mental scatter. This is not a relaxation technique in the passive sense. It is a deliberate neurological intervention that can shift the autonomic state in under 3 minutes. A simple protocol, 5 to 8 breath cycles where the inhalation lasts 4 counts and the exhalation lasts 6 to 8 counts. The extended exhale is the active component. It is what drives the parasympathetic activation. Performed before warming up, either seated or standing, with eyes closed and attention directed to the physical sensation of the breath. This brief practice produces a measurable reduction in the stress state tension that would otherwise persist through the entire session. What follows this breath reset is a qualitatively different training state. The mind is less cluttered. The muscles are less reflexively tense. The transition into the warm-up feels more intentional. And the working sets that follow are executed with a quality of attention, a deliberateness in each rep, that distracted, stress-elevated training cannot access. People who implement this for the first time consistently report that the session feels different immediately. Not easier. Different. More connected. More controlled. More like they are genuinely present in the training rather than physically in the gym, while mentally still somewhere else. The activation warm-up that most people skip entirely. The second component of the tiny change is what happens after the breath reset and before the first working set. And it is where most people's pre-training routine fails most significantly. The standard warm-up, if one exists at all, typically involves 5 to 10 minutes of light cardio, followed by moving immediately into the working sets at progressively heavier loads. This approach addresses cardiovascular readiness and joint temperature, but ignores the neuromuscular component of preparation that determines the quality of the first working set. Neuromuscular activation, the deliberate engagement of specific muscles that will be primary movers in the session, is the missing layer. And its absence means that the first working sets of a session are being performed with muscles that are warm but neurologically under-recruited. Here is the specific mechanism. Many of the most important muscles for compound training, the glutes, the serratus anterior, the deep core stabilizers, the rotator cuff, are chronically underactivated in people with sedentary occupations and forward-dominated daily postures. They are not injured. They are simply not being recruited with full neurological priority because the nervous system has deprioritized them in favor of the muscles doing the most work in habitual daily positions. When someone squats without first deliberately activating the glutes and deep hip stabilizers, the nervous system recruits from whatever hierarchy of muscle activation is currently established, which, in someone who has been sitting for 8 hours, often places the hip flexors and lower back ahead of the glutes in the movement pattern. The squat happens, but the intended stimulus is partially misdirected. 3 to 5 minutes of targeted activation work, glute bridges, band walks, shoulder external rotation drills, dead bug variations. Before compound training does something that cardiovascular warm-up cannot. It reestablishes the neuromuscular recruitment priority of the muscles the session is designed to train. The first working set arrives with those muscles already firing correctly, and the stimulus of every subsequent set is delivered with greater mechanical precision. The session does not just feel better. It produces better because the right muscles are doing the intended work from the first rep rather than the third set. The session intention that changes attentional quality. There is a third component that costs no time and requires no physical effort, and yet influences the quality of attentional engagement throughout the entire session in a way that has direct implications for muscle recruitment, performance, and the mind-muscle connection discussed earlier. Before beginning any session, taking 30 seconds to set a specific movement intention, not a motivation statement, but a precise technical focus for the day, changes what the brain is monitoring during each set. An intention like, maintain elbow position throughout every curl, or drive the floor away rather than pulling the bar up during deadlifts, or keep the shoulder blades retracted through the entire press, gives the attentional system a specific task to perform during training, rather than leaving it to wander between reps and sets. Research on attentional focus during resistance training consistently shows that an internal focus, directing attention to the specific muscles being trained, and the precise execution of the movement produces higher target muscle activation than an external focus on the outcome of the movement. 30 seconds spent defining what internal focus the session will maintain is 30 seconds that upgrades the neurological quality of every single rep that follows. Most people train with unfocused attention, aware that they are training, aware of the load, aware of the rep count, but not specifically directing their awareness to the muscular and mechanical details that determine how productive each rep actually is. The session intention is the tool that converts unfocused physical effort into deliberate neuromuscular practice. Conclusion: the tiny change that makes workouts feel better is not a supplement, not a program modification, and not an additional exercise. It is a 3-part transition that takes less than 10 minutes total and resets the nervous system, activates the correct muscles, and establishes the attentional focus that the quality of the training demands. A structured breath reset, targeted neuromuscular activation, a specific session intention set before the first set begins. These 3 practices together shift the body and mind from whatever state the day produced into the regulated, activated, focused state that genuine training performance requires. The session that follows is not louder or more intense. It is more precise, more connected, more productive per unit of effort than anything the same person has done without this preparation. Training harder is not always the answer. Training better, with the nervous system in the right state, the right muscles correctly activated, and attention deliberately directed, produces outcomes that volume alone cannot reach. Implement this before the next session. Not all 3 at once if that feels like too much. Start with the breath. Notice what changes. Then add the activation. Then the intention. And pay attention to how different the session feels when the body and the brain both arrive together, instead of one showing up while the other is still somewhere else. If this gave you something specific and immediately applicable, subscribe and share this with a training partner or someone who has been putting in the effort without getting everything they deserve from it. This channel is built around the details that most fitness content never gets precise enough to explain.